Good day. Today, we are going to have a very interesting interview with Professor Samuel Mokgokong, the renowned world-class neurosurgeon. We are going to look at his life journey from where it started in Makotopong village, just outside of Polokwane in Limpopo. We will then go through his early schooling life, and we'll spend a lot of time looking at his university and working life. And towards the end, we will look at his legacy, what he thinks he has brought to the world, what he would like people to remember him of his time here on earth. And we'll also just pick his brain about the current healthcare system in South Africa, what he thinks works well, but also what he thinks needs to be attended to, so that the people of South Africa can eventually one day get to access healthcare that they deserve from the amount of money that we spend as a country. Today, we need to get your story recorded. Let's start in Makotopong. That village that seemed to have produced a lot of educated people, including people from your family. Can you tell us a little bit about the family that you were born into, how it influenced your life, and was it not difficult to actually grow up in a family of high achievers? Was there any pressure coming out of that family?
Yes, no, thanks for the kind words, but Makotopong, yes, I grew up under Reverend E.T. Mokgokong, my grandfather.
Yes.
Both Reverend and Mrs. Mokgokong. I grew up under them at Makotopong. It was a Christian village. Lutheran Christian village. In fact, the village was bought by a few reverends, including my grandfather, so that people without land can stay there so long as they are Christians. So that's the short story of Makotopo.
So if you're not a Christian, you were not allowed?
No, these were reverends. They were true to their word, They were increasing by all means the Christian folk.
Wow. Okay, so about that family, the Mokgokong family, that is Reverend E.T. with his wife, who was so much into education. Just a little bit about your uncles.
Yes, Reverend Mokgokong actually, started, the mother was working for a Lutheran pastor. She was washing pots for her. For the Lutheran pastor. Now, Reverend Mokgokong was a child who grew up there. The then German Lutherans realized there's a bit of, brightness in this boy. And so they actually helped educate him. Yes. And so he became a teacher, he became a principal, and he was, for some time, an inspector until he decided, I must become a priest to thank God for what I am, because it was through these German Christians.
So, therefore, you grew up in a family
yes.
of strong Christian values.
Absolutely, reading the Bible every day, literally.
As a young man, growing up in that type of environment, was it not boring?
Well, the discipline of that time was such that you could not do otherwise. Indeed, it was boring. The daily readings, of course, would be at night before you sleep. And we would slumber and wake up under the table from a blow from the old man to say, wake up, So it was boring, but you wouldn't dare be bored. Yes.
Right. So you grew up then in that family. Professor who was a TEF, another highly educated uncle who was in Swaziland, and then
Yeah.
there was your dad.
The connection
You know,
there.
so
yes.
I just want the value of
absolutely.
education now.
Absolutely. So when Reverend Mokgokong was growing and the family, growing up the family, land was cheap then. So not only did they buy land for the Christian village, they had already bought land for their own farming. So he was a farmer. He was a subsistent farmer. He used mules and a plow. And so he was a good farmer. So there was a lot of good crop. And so that's how he educated his children. He sent them to the first one, the first two to, all three boys to university.
So he was a teacher,
Yeah.
he was a priest,
Right.
he was a farmer. Did
Right.
you play any role in the farming?
Well, I played a role in both because, we used to farm, we used to plow with mules. And of course, when he was a priest of a big area where there were no priests in the vicinity. So Holy Communion, he would spend the mules, a mule cart, and go from place to place to take Holy Communion. And that's why I come in, because I would go up in the morning before the sun is up, get the mule span and get him on so he can go for his trip. So I played a role, I would say, in both his lives. But when he became a priest, he was a full-time priest. He had left everything to the relevant people who took over.
But now, being the grandchild, you being the grandchild, did he still have that high discipline thingy that he administered to your uncles, or he was a bit tired by the time you were born?
No. He would kick until he literally died. So, the last person who received those blows before he died was me, because, I grew up under him.
Yes.
And that's when he went to, to demise.
But I understand that his wife played a much bigger role when it came to matters of education. That is now to your uncles, but also to yourself. She would be the one who would encourage, make sure that the homeworks are done and things like that, even though she had only gone up to standard 6. So I just want her role in your early childhood.
Similar as the roles of their children. The grandchild was treated the same. Every day, when the sun sets and the girls are cooking, you got to be sitting, reading your books there. You eat, then it's a prayer, it's the Bible, and you sleep.
All right. So your early schooling years, and I just want to move quickly here up to standard 6. Is there anything or are there any highlights worth documenting?
While we were growing up in the farms, the highlight, of course, was that being a Christian village, that every morning there's an assembly, a prayer. You go to classes, the first subject is religious instruction. That was in all the classes in these Christian villages.
Nowadays, when we look at something like that, we would say that was indoctrination.
I think that was proper guidance. Children have to be guided.
Yes.
Yes, and just like, a farmer would guide a child to farm, I think so much Christians guide their children to become Christians.
Yes.
It was guidance, I think.
Okay. So any highlights then, in that period up to standard 6, which was a major level of qualification for many people those days?
Yes, it was. And in fact, I was nearly unfortunate in a sense because, my grandfather, because farming did so much to him, he loved it very much. And in fact, he wanted me to be a farmer. He told me that I want you to be a farmer. And so I was, when an elderly tells you something, everything that's from an elderly person's mouth, we would believe.
But how did you perform in school, though? Because, because one would say, if you were a straight A student all those days, maybe he wouldn't channel you that direction.
You're asking a good question.
Yeah.
On the contrary, I was actually tops throughout. Every other person was fighting for the second position. But still my grandfather thought, I want a farmer in this boy. And in standard 6, by the way, you only had to go farming after standard 6. You didn't have to go elsewhere. I mean, at post standard 6 institutions. So in standard 6, in June, I remember he did the applications. He sat with me to say, we're applying to this farm school. They quickly sent the forms. And he bought me the uniform, big size, khakis, so that, you know, and I was looking forward to it. Yes, I was looking forward to it. You see.
And you had bought into that?
Yes, quite honestly, I just, when you grow up in the type of discipline we grew up, what your parents said was gospel, quite honestly.
Now, but you did not end up a farmer. Now, just tell us a little bit, what saved you from that direction and you ended up taking a different direction?
A stroke of fate, because my grandfather, as he was waiting for me to pass standard 6, he knew I was going to get a first class in standard 6. He said, if you get that first class, I'm going to give you 10 shillings, half a pound. What? It's 12 shillings during those times. That was a lot of money. So on the day of the results of standard 6, that's the day my grandfather died. That's why I will never forget, because I never got my 12 bobs, you know, my 12 shillings. So that's how I was saved in the sense that, well, when he was gone, then my fate was with his sons.
Your uncles?
My uncles. And so my uncles said, nothing doing. The boy must go on to high school.
No farming?
No farming. And in fact, I was lucky because Uncle Porth, who was then in Soweto at Pefeni, I hadn't applied. He says, no, I'll take this boy to that school. We'll just show them the results and they'll take him. And that's what happened. Orlando West High School.
Yes. The famous prof, the one who ended up being a rector
at the
Teflo.
University of the North, yes. The one who actually helped Mandela to get his law degree because he was missing Latin. He gave him special tuition for that. He gave Bishop Tutu special tuition when he was in a hospital suffering from TB because Tutu was his best student and he didn't want him to miss anything. So those are the two parts that people don't know about this Uncle Porth.
So he got you in then at Orlando West?
Yes.
And that just, would you say you were a sporty kind of guy? You were or you were a bookworm? What kind of a high school student were you?
Well, look, I have to be honest. I was from the farming areas and I was going right into the depth of Soweto. Pefeni, you see. So with my accent of Sepedi, there was a bit of a challenge because heads would turn in the streets as I play, but who's this now? But no, ubuya ediplingu.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Gibarinyana.
Also ediplingu.
Yes.
So even in class, I forfeited that usual position of the first as I adjusted. Form 1, I was number 13 in June. End of the year of Form 1, I was number 2. It is from Form 2 to Form 5 that again people were fighting for the second position.
Yes.
But there was that bit of adjustment.
In the first year?
In the first year.
Yeah. But otherwise, how did you find the life in Soweto?
Well, life was quite exciting in Soweto. An invaluable experience, Social life was vibrant. Weekends would go to stadiums to watch soccer, which we wouldn't have watched where I was before. No, it was exciting.
Yes. But now you went to Pefeni.
Yes.
Right? That's part of Soweto was or still is associated with Kaizer Chiefs, the soccer team. All right, now,
Yeah,
All right, but I understand you are a supporter of Orlando Pirates, though.
Yes, because Prof Mokgokong was a big Pirate supporter, the one who was a Teflop.
Yes.
And in fact, he was responsible, together with Motsamai, for the Black Pirates, which was breaking away from Orlando Pirates. But he was a pirate by heart, so we grew up as pirates in that family. Although, of course, his young brother was a chief supporter, Ephraim, and the elder brother was Chiefs, Source. But Poth, the middle brother, was a pirate through and through, and so we were, so we still are.
Okay. So you're one of those people whose hearts are always broken by a team that underperforms.
Recently, we are on a high ride. They've just beaten Marisburg 3-1 in a knockout. So
okay.
Yes.
All right. No. Okay. So quickly about the schooling. Would you say you excelled in anything there during your high school years? Debating or maths and science?
Yeah, no doubt maths and science were the pet subjects. And what makes matric very difficult, you probably know this, is that you got to do well in all of them. You can't say maths, physics, and you ignore the others. So why I say so is because I was from a northern Soweto area. When I went to Orlando West, there was no North Soweto. So I was forced to do Setswana from Form 1 to Form 3.
Which was a new Sotho language for you.
It was Setswana. So in my JC results, it was my West symbol, and it was a D.
Yeah. And those days you used to write external examination for JC, which was standard 8 then, or grade 10 too.
Yeah, it was an external one. So because I had performed West, I got a D in Setswana. Uncle Poth went with me to the school to say, for matric, you are bringing in Sepedi for this, because this boy, I'll take him elsewhere where there's Sepedi. So for the first time, Orlando West High School brought in Sepedi for matric. And guess what? 30 other people came. We were a class of about 30 from the same school.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, people were forced to do other things.
So you would have underperformed in the mother tongue, or in the vernac.
Absolutely. And he was right. And I got an A in Sepedi in matric, joint matriculation board.
Yeah.
So that was good from him, because that balances everything there. Ace in the maths and the physics. You got to do the others for the aggregate,
Yeah. So what aggregate did you get then?
Well, joint matriculation board A.
JMB?
Yes.
Yeah.
There were 3 schools in Soweto who did JMB. Yeah. It was Orlando West High School, Orlando High School, Maurice Isaacson. And those were from teachers, who wanted this to get better education for their children. The teachers who are called the so-called Bantu education teachers. It was from them to say we must have joint matriculation board for some of our schools in Soweto.
Because it had a higher standard.
Of course, joint matriculation board was a type of an examination that was set by universities, so that when you pass it, then you do better in universities.
All right. So you got your A?
Yes.
By that time, did you already know what you wanted to do? Or you waited for the results and then decided what you wanted to do? That is now tertiary level.
Well, look, being good in maths and physics, will go a long way in influencing your future. I actually wanted to be a scientist or an engineer. And I told my father that. That's the third Mokgokong, who was my father then, fathering me up. So
that is Prof E.T.
Mokgokong.
The guy.
Right. So when I passed matric and I told him, look, I want to be a scientist or an engineer, and I have to go and do BSc. He said, in that time of apartheid, the future was bleak. So
that is for people who were going to do engineering.
Absolutely, and scientists. He just saw no way you could have a black scientist there. So he said to me, my son, I'm sorry, but if you want to be independent and do well in life, even materially, you got to do medicine. So I just asked him, okay, give me a chance to do BSc and take this maths and physics to third level, then I'll branch to your medicine. And he granted me that. And so
you went to Teflof University,
yes.
Which is now called the University of the North.
Now it's the University of Limpopo.
Oh, okay.
It was then University of the North, now it's the University of Limpopo. Yeah.
So you did your undergraduate Bachelor of Science degree there, 3-year degree.
It's a 3-year degree, but I had to make sure that I mixed the pre-medical courses in the first year, so that when you get it, you can go straight to
second-year medicine.
To second-year medicine, or straight to vets for engineering. And both places took me, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So any highlights during your time at TEF? Now this is the time where you are getting to be a young man. You're starting to look at girls, you have to balance things. The hormones are raging.
You must know that I was brought up by a reverend. And, unlike many people, there are many things I started doing much later in life. And I don't regret that. But nonetheless, indeed, the hormones are hormones.
Yeah.
But they could be suppressed then through performance. Also suppressed through the fact that when we were in third year, we were chosen, me and another fellow in my class, to mentor the first years. And so our hands were full. We used to, in the afternoons, go and mentor the first years, and they enjoyed it very much because they then understood the subject of mathematics when taught by their mentors.
So that was your first foray into giving back?
That was the first foray into, the foray into giving back, yes, indeed.
Now, so you got your 3 years of BSc. Now, the other thing that normally happens at university, it's student politics. Were you in any way involved in student politics those days? I know ANC was banned those days. PAC was banned. However, there were, offshoots that were working either underground or as cover.
You are right. The ANC then was totally banned. I will be honest with you. What was prominent at that time was Black Consciousness Movement. Yes, indeed, we were active in the Black Consciousness Movement. You are black, you are proud. The Sasso philosophy, the Steve Biko philosophy. That's the era where we matured in. And in fact, I was in student politics because remember, in my last year, 1974, that's when Mozambique got independent. And there were lots of pro-Frelimo rallies all over. And in fact, the biggest was at our university. And by the way, Cyril Ramaphosa, our president, is my contemporary. So we were in it with him. He became also very active in student politics from that time.
But the philosophy was more, though, the BCM.
Absolutely.
The Steve Biko type of politics.
Yeah.
But one thing that I've noticed with people from those days, especially the Azapo philosophy, was the issue of self-reliance, pride.
Absolutely.
Giving back. As you go up, you lift others, which today's politics they seemingly are about self-enrichment rather than, using your position to actually make a difference to others.
You're quite right about that. No, they were they influenced us greatly even to the point, this thing of black and proud, even to the point that I decided the woman I'm going to marry is going to be a black woman, black in color, not light black. And so it was that I married.
So wouldn't that be seen as some form of racism? where you know, I mean, I know I'm just being naughty now, but this thing of pro-black doesn't necessarily mean that you are anti other people, other. But those days with the Azapo philosophy, it was really about trying to get the people to be
the best out of people. Trying to get the best out of people. Looking back, you can say maybe there was a bit of backlash racism, but racism was still hot then. I mean, you were not going to look at a white man who was punching your face. You had to look at black and being proud so as to resist the denigration you are getting. Yes, looking back, I mean, I wouldn't say it's normal, but it had to happen. So that people can be enthused and be proud of themselves. And achieve.
Yes, and that's the time where the philosophies those days were not so pro people who were using creams to get to be lighter, skin lighteners, and hair. People who were using stones to make their hair to be, straight and flat.
That's correct. That's how much that era influenced all of us.
Yes.
That was powerful, the philosophies then.
Yes. So you went to Natal Medical School. Why Natal Medical School? Because there was Wits here, which was also offering medicine.
Look, historically, vets offered medicine to a certain point, the very first African doctors, until when apartheid hit, and they said you can't have blacks and whites mixing. We must look for a university that will start a faculty to train only blacks. And so University of Natal had all other faculties except the Faculty of Medicine. So the government of the day went to them and encouraged them to start a medical faculty for Africans. And that's how it started. So almost all of us, if you wanted medicine, you'd go there and nowhere else. By the way, I was taken at Wits for engineering also, but that's besides the point. It's irrelevant to the point you are raising. Yes.
So you went straight to do medicine from second year?
Second year, yes.
Because you already had your BSc, which has got the pre-medical courses.
Yes.
So you got there. How did you find yourself? Was there any adjustment issues coming from what others would call Bush University? Because homeland universities or universities like those, for some reason, people would give a tag. Your University of Transkei, your TEF, to some extent Forte as well, although it had a long history. There was this thinking that it was a lower level type of university. So coming from...
On next week's episode on SA Health Icon.
Yes, we had to do that, and sometimes we would come quite late. You make sure you know when.
Yeah, fifth year, and was it 1975 when you then got your MPCHP?
1979. So I must say, that's where, there was a big adjustment. I had to start getting